start because I have a couple of questions about the minutes.
Okay.
Well, Allison, are you ready?
I think so. Yep. I think we're.
Okay. Okay. So here we are. Here is the January 17th, 2024 Camden Rockport Pathways Committee meeting. And so we'll move quickly through the minutes. What do you have, Jeff?
I just had a couple. I don't think Jane or Kayla were at that meeting.
Okay.
I'm not even sure
Jane,
about.
I will tell you, Jane was in and out briefly. Apparently, they had very poor internet at their house. It's better
Yeah.
now, but she's not sure if she'll be here tonight.
But was she at the last meeting?
She flickered in and out but she said it's very hard to Zoom from her house. But
Yeah.
it's different now.
So she was present. What about Kayla?
Kayla certainly wasn't.
Okay.
My job was to ask Kayla whether she wanted to join us, and she said no.
Oh, she did? Oh, bummer. Okay.
Kayla is not interested in joining she's interested, but her life has changed and she can't.
Okay.
So I don't know, I'd certainly strike her.
Yep.
And then just clarification is under the body there, it says roadways and signage.
Yeah.
Data is missing about who uses the shoulders on roads and painting sharrows.
Right. It was
Data?
very cryptic, so I was a little confused myself. So I'm glad you're
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah. So I think what that was relationship to continuity of what town policies are for painting
Right.
sharrows and other bicycle pedestrian type things, including shoulder stripes and stuff like that. I think that's what it was related to.
Right, but I couldn't remember and of course I could have gone back to review the meeting, but I didn't. But I couldn't remember I know that we have talked about let's pursue this, and maybe the point made was that let's look at other municipalities that are doing that, initiate some sort of level of research along with the Bicycle Coalition.
Yeah, I couldn't remember, and I didn't go back and look either, but it didn't make any sense to me. I think I'll volunteer to go back and look and straighten this out. Because of the other sentence about, or at least up to the park. I don't know if that's the Snow Bowl or the Camden Hill State Park. And I think that was taken out of context because we were talking about whether we could put sharrows as part of the project. Well, on Route 1 North, I don't know. So,
well,
let me go back and listen to it, and that we don't have to second guess it.
Yeah, I think the gist of it was, because I've been pressing this one, is let's see if we can standardize across Camden and Rockport how, what's painted along the road so that the public doesn't get confused if and when we ever paint the roads in Rockport.
Okay.
And Allison, you sent, and I know I can't find them, I would have said, but you sent that very cool how AI, and I saw we're doing it today, sort of does minutes, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It may be in there, but I can't find how you sent that out to us.
I mean, are we just trying to get to the bottom of the talk about standardizing? I mean, we had a whole lot of conversation about that because I said, I don't want to be told that we have to standardize with Rockport because that's just a barrier a lot of the time. And we should be instead trying to, go for some kind of best practice. But a lot of the time it was kind of about like, oh, Camden will let Rockport know about projects and Rockport lets Camden know. And I just think it's kind of lofty because what we've done in the past is just standardized to the lowest possible standard.
Right. And I didn't mean to derail the conversation. Let me go back. We're just talking about the minutes. Let me go back and just review that section of our video, and I'll make that suggestion at the next meeting. My suggestion is that we defer approval of the minutes until next meeting.
My point was that Allison sent out Zoom does minutes for us. She sent us how AI, and I think it was captured in there. So
Oh.
it might save
Oh.
time. That's
Yeah,
all I
and
was trying to say.
it was pretty funny reading, Margot.
Yeah.
It really was. It was
Okay,
like,
They
it
would
was
not be
pretty
our
good.
official meetings, but they're helpful.
Yes, okay, got it, Margot.
Okay,
All
I'll
right.
talk about it again this time if you want, and can see if you like it.
Well, I think the links were important too. So wherever they came from, that was great. Somebody put those into chat. So those are in the minutes, but okay, good. So we will wait. We won't approve the minutes. Then let's go into our conversation with Dakota, if Dakota's here. And Jeff, do you want to just take it from here because hi, Dakota.
Hello, good evening.
Just who is our minute taker tonight? I will tell you, I've been in meetings from 8 o'clock. I got home literally about 25 minutes ago. I would like to not take minutes, but I will if nobody else is.
I'll tell you what, I will take minutes. I'm gonna let Jeff go ahead and carry this conversation with Dakota forward, and we really only have 2 items on the agenda. But yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll take minutes.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to speak much. Dakota will introduce himself just fine. He's the active transportation planner for MDOT, which is a new position. And part of the reason he's here is to help explain what his job entails and how we can liaise with him.
Sure, I'll start from that. Thanks, Jeff. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Dakota Hewlett. I am the active transportation planner with Maine DOT. I also answer to bicycle pedestrian coordinator, bike guy, I don't know, whatever you want to call me. I'll probably answer. But my position is not that new at Maine DOT. I've been in the position for 18 months maybe now. Patrick Adams was the name of my predecessor, who I know had worked with Dave and some, on some things in the Mid-Coast area, and he worked statewide before me. So there's been at least a couple of us in this position. Moving on from that, I do have a short slide presentation. I'll go through a couple of things and then happy to address any questions or thoughts on that. Am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, you should, that should be enabled.
Yep. Cool. So I will try to go quick through this. Are you seeing a full slide presentation?
Yes.
Nice, great. So going on this, so talk a little bit about what my role is in the department. I'm kind of the subject matter expert when it comes to bicycle and pedestrian transportation and bike ped safety within the state Department of Transportation. So I work with a lot of folks both internally and externally in regards to that. I also am involved in a lot of planning and project scoping for Maine DOT related projects and some non-Maine DOT projects that relate to bicycle pedestrian facilities, infrastructure improvements, or dealing with bike ped infrastructure when other projects impact that. If we have a paving project or some other type of project or a bridge replacement, something that is going to impact existing facilities as well, involved in helping to kind of scope some of that out and make sure we're delivering a proper project. I also work very, very closely with our 3 regional planners in the state of Maine. So we've got our DOT is kind of split up across 5 regions, and we have 3 planners that cover those 5 regions. So you may hear some other names from time to time. Steve Cole is the regional planner that covers the Mid-Coast area in southern Maine. So he may work with folks in Camden from time to time as well. I manage our what we call the Maine DOT Bike Ped Funding Program. That's Maine's iteration of the Federal Transportation Alternatives Program. That is essentially grant money to fund transportation projects in the state of Maine that municipalities can apply for. So towns and cities can apply to Maine DOT for a project to co-fund for bike ped infrastructure, bike ped safety. So we do a lot of sidewalk projects, some multi-use trail projects. intersection and crossing enhancements, safety enhancements, things like that. That is an 80-20 program. So the municipality brings 20% in non-federal match, and if successful, the project will receive 80% in federal funds. That's a program that I administer. We get a little over $4 million a year through the Federal Highway Administration for that program at the moment.
What's the name of that grant program?
On our website, you'll see it called the Bike Ped Funding Program. It is the Federal Transportation Alternatives Program, is what it's called, and that's essentially federal gas tax that comes to us through the Federal Highway Administration. I'm also a liaison with a lot of different partners and stakeholders, doing things just as we are tonight, speaking to different groups and stakeholders throughout the state about bicycle and pedestrian transportation or safety, helping to connect people who are working on similar efforts or connect resources to folks who are looking for them. I also have a role in reviewing project design, either projects that are funded through the Bike Ped program or other projects that Maine DOT is administering that have some type of impact on bike ped facilities, whether we're impacting them with a project or whether we're designing and constructing new facilities. And of course, do a lot of coordination internally with our staff. So our headquarters staff, a lot of engineering staff, planners, and then our region staff that are out throughout the state doing project delivery, construction, maintenance, all that kind of thing. So a pretty diverse role at the state. Communicating is a huge part of what I do, answering questions, trying to connect people to folks who do know the answer to questions, because I certainly don't know the answer to most of the questions I receive. So I'm going to talk about a few programs that we have. I'll talk just briefly about our active transportation plan and then open it up to all of you. One thing that you may be interested in is our Planning Partnership Initiative program. This is a program where Maine DOT and a municipality can cost share a planning effort. So this is essentially where we would hire a professional planning or engineering consultant to do the work, and Maine DOT and the municipality would share the cost of that and help manage that consultant. From an active transportation standpoint, we use this program from time to time to put together active transportation plans, larger kind of municipality-wide plans for bike ped needs or specific corridor or study area, planning if there's a certain corridor, a certain area that is really troublesome and the town wants to improve that for bike ped transportation. We'll look at that. We're about to kick something off with the city of Belfast for an active transportation plan that's funded as a PPI, Planning Partnership Initiative, with us. It's a little bit of a broad program, so we can do a lot, but as long as it deals with transportation planning and does have a strong nexus to the state transportation network, it's something we can consider working with municipalities on. I just put this picture in here because this is a great example of what a planning partnership study is. Oftentimes we've got maps out where highlighters in one hand and sticky dots in the other, and we're really marking up the map to try to find what we want to see in a community and what we can do to help improve things transportation wise. So our Village Partnership Initiative is a little bit larger. We've got two versions of this Village Partnership program. The small one we call the SPOT VPI, our small spot specific location improvements, up to a $500,000 cost. Again, this is cost share between the municipality and Maine DOT. And these small improvements can be gateway treatments. As you're coming into a town, it could be signage, it could be traffic calming elements, accessibility concerns, enhanced pedestrian crossings, maybe reworking an intersection or something like that. Smaller location-specific projects. And the Transformative Village Partnership Initiatives are large planning studies that then could potentially result in Maine DOT and the municipality seeking large federal transportation grants to implement something. So we're kind of rebuilding downtown Sanford as a large transformative VPI that includes a lot of traffic flow work and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and the whole kind of transportation system. That's our program for attacking kind of an entire downtown or entire area and making a very large transformative change. Just a couple examples of the Village Partnership initiative on the left there is downtown Hollowell. The middle one is new sidewalk bump outs in Gardner, and the one on the right is just an example of what an enhanced pedestrian crossing might look like. So I want to chat just a little bit about our Maine State Active Transportation Plan. Earlier this year in 2023, we released Maine DOT's first Maine State Active Transportation Plan. This is our guidance document for how we want to manage active transportation or bicycle pedestrian transportation in the state of Maine moving forward. So this is kind of almost my job description, kind of moving forward the next handful of years, laying out some specific goals and a vision for how we want to improve active transportation in the state of Maine. This was created over a number of months of public engagement and stakeholder engagement and planning, and we relied on a lot of assistance from some partners and a professional planning consultant to help us through the process. So I just want to hit on what some of those goals are quickly. The first goal is to make cost-effective improvements to the on-road network. So those are things along the roadways, in the roadway, bicycle lanes, sharrows, and along the roadway, like sidewalk networks and things like that, as well as crossings. So focused on those village and downtown areas through the Village Partnership Program, as well as what we can do on rural roads when we have the opportunity, and assessing speed limits and identifying opportunities to better align speed limits and roadway design. We've got a whole effort in relation to speed limits underway. Second goal is that we'd like to make expansions in the off-road active transportation network in the state of Maine. So those are like multi-use trails, rail trails, side paths, trails that serve bicyclists and pedestrians and connect to different communities and to different destinations. So we'd like to continue some work in that regard in both the on-road and the off-road network. And a really important one to make active transportation more feasible in the state of Maine is to increase connections to other modes of transportation so that folks can get where they need to go, make connections to different modes if they need to. So making sure that people have better access to transit stops if that's available, connecting bicycle infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure to transit infrastructure so that folks can make the connections they need to make to get to where they're going. As well as to provide consideration for underserved communities and folks who are using this infrastructure because they need to. Maybe they aren't able to have a car, aren't able to drive a car for financial reasons. We need to make sure that folks can still get where they need to go. So the fourth goal is improving active transportation education and outreach efforts. We work very closely with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, who delivers our Safe Streets bicycle safety education program in the state of Maine. They work with schools and other groups to deliver bicycle and pedestrian safety presentations, on-bike training, bike rodeos for kids, presentations on adult education, a lot of different things that they're doing for us to deliver that safety message to the public and folks in Maine. We want to continue to support that, as well as to dive into new outreach efforts when it makes sense to reach out to folks in the state of Maine, whether it's about specific topics like e-bikes or something, or bike commuting, or just general safety. And the fifth goal is funding. Funding is always super important. So we're going to continue to not only utilize existing funding that we have, but we're going to pursue new funding sources that may be available through state and federal opportunities, as well as we've committed to reviewing our local municipal match policy. That's a big part of that as well. And that local match policy review will be happening starting here in the spring of 2024. We are currently updating our complete streets policy at Maine DOT. We'll have some public and stakeholder engagement around that next month. And then after that policy is updated, we'll dig into the match policy. So I did want to talk about a couple of other things quickly. We're currently operating an e-bike program with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine that has three exciting parts to it. The first one, BCM now has a demonstration fleet of e-bikes. They have 10 e-bikes that they can bring to locations across the state of Maine to help promote the use of e-bikes for transportation and help promote bicycle safety. So if there's ever an event in the Camden Rockport area, if there's a group that would benefit from having this fleet of e-bikes at their event, reach out to me or reach out to the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. They've got that available for folks to use. They've been taking this around to community events and fairs and corporate events and folks who are interested in learning more about e-bikes. Also working on an e-bike pilot with them in regards to workforce transportation and getting people who aren't able to use a car, aren't able to drive a car in e-bikes so that they can get to their place of employment and continue to hold down their job if transportation can be a barrier for them. And then are working on standing up a library e-bike loan program with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, where some libraries throughout the state would have one or more e-bikes for a period of time throughout the season that they could be checked out, like checking out a book or some other type of equipment at the library. Folks could check out an e-bike and utilize one that way. Traffic calming and demonstration are pilot projects. This is something that we are really pushing and really want to work on with more municipalities. Hint, hint. So we'd love to continue to find ways where we can make infrastructure changes, either seasonal or temporary or permanent, that can have a positive safety benefit. So these are the types of projects that you might see around the state that use those plastic delineator posts that are kind of flexible. You might see extra paint on the ground or other temporary measures, trying to test out a new design, test out something at a location that might improve safety, decide if that's the type of treatment we or the municipality wants to move forward with, and if that's a design that we want to implement on a permanent basis or not. So we've done a handful of these around the state, and we have a policy to implement them. So if there are locations in the area that you think could be made safer with temporary crosswalks or radius changes, temporary protected bike lanes, medians, lots of different things can be done with these types of materials. Those are things that Maine DOT is interested in doing more of. And we're super interested in doing this because we want to do better with our before and after data. When we're implementing something on the roadway, we want to make sure that we're really having a positive impact, whether we're trying to do speed management and traffic calming, trying to lower speeds on a roadway or increase crosswalk yielding compliance or something like that. We would really like to work with municipalities to do something where we can measure before and after and learn what types of these interventions are most impactful in different places in Maine. Municipal support is super crucial with this. So we're always looking to work directly with the municipality and find a design that can work for everyone involved. And then potentially can find a program to permanently implement something in concrete and asphalt and permanent materials if a temporary design is being successful and we want to move forward with the permanent installation. I did mention our Complete Streets policy already. We are currently updating that. We created our first Complete Streets policy back in 2014. It was a great step back then, but at this point, we want to take another step and create additional internal implementation guidance so that we can better and more consistently implement the policy, and that our staff and our consultants know what the policy means to the work that they do and how that they can best implement it. So we've started our task force to do that and have come up with a draft Complete Streets policy that's currently being reviewed by our commissioner and our department leadership, and we'll be doing some public and external stakeholder engagement starting later this month and into February as we look to finalize that new Complete Streets policy. That's all the slides that I had. So happy to answer any questions, dive into any of these topics a little further, or bring up anything else you might want to discuss.
That's a real snapshot, Dakota. Thank you.
Sorry if I went too quick. I tried to cover some stuff without taking up too much of your time.
Dakota, that was awesome. That was like, oh my gosh, that was information. Tremendous amount of information. Thank you. Just going, I'll kick it off, give people a chance to think, because it was just on the last slide and something I've been thinking of as it relates to our master plan, our two town master plans, and that's the Complete Street policy. When you read big, fancy New York City, Seattle, Portland, Oregon master plans for bikes and peds, they incorporate complete streets. What would that mean to you, Dave? I mean, how do you do that? Because it's overwhelming in terms of what it's asking for.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, the old policy pretty much just basically said that if you touch a street sidewalk, you kind of bring it up to current standards, right? Dakota.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been just incorporating that philosophy every time I do a road. If you notice, I'm not returning sidewalks to what they were. I'm making them what they should be. And when I do that, I'm creating some traffic calming measures at the same time. So it's kind of like a twofold effort. You know, you enhance one and you take care of another issue. And then you just look at every opportunity when you redo a road to kind of bring it up to that kind of standard. You know, the radiuses, the way the sidewalk flows. You can do it without people really noticing that you're doing it, other than the people that are trying to cut through the area that you did it to. It's kind of the easiest way to say it. You know, we're getting some complaints like on Pearl Street that, you know, it might be a little narrower than it was, but it's 22 feet wide. You know, I mean, that's plenty wide for a road. And when someone parks on the side, guess what? You can't go flying down through there. I took out the big sweeping radiuses. I squared them up a little bit. And you can't really, it's not so fun to kind of try to cut through that area anymore. It's a little bit more work. And, you know, it might really, I honestly think once I'm finished it, I'm not quite finished it because we ran out of time, but once it's all prettied up, I mean, it's going to be a neighborhood again and there'll be less people cutting through. And that's the objective with those neighborhood streets. They're not meant to be cut throughs. And you just got to look at each road every time you improve it, like everything else.
Is there value?
It's holistic, you know, everything under the ground should be taken care of, and then everything above the ground should be brought up to the standard of a complete street as best you can. The difficulty I'm finding is that sometimes you just don't have room for a bike lane on both sides and a sidewalk and on, you know, included into that. And unfortunately, it's the bike lane that usually has to suffer from it. And I don't have the best way of fixing that solution. And I'm sure Dakota can vouch for that. That's always seems to be the trouble. So that's when you go and put sharrows, areas that you don't have enough room for a bike lane, but it's hard squeezing all that stuff in there. That's really the challenge I see. And
yeah, I'll just add that the phrase context sensitive design is something that often really accompanies complete streets. And it's just, you know, kind of recognizing the location you're in, the context that you're in, and designing the infrastructure to meet those needs there. So, you know, not designing those streets as a you know, those neighborhood streets as a highway, and then not designing the interstate as a neighborhood street. So, you know, kind of understanding who the transportation users are that you expect there,
exactly.
What the appropriate speeds are, and making those, you know, design considerations appropriately so that we have a product at the end of this that kind of meets the needs of that context.
One more quick follow-up to that, and then I'll let other people ask questions if they have them. And that is, Dakota, do you know, is the vision, MDOT's vision, that towns would incorporate the complete streets somehow in their comprehensive plans or master plans or something? Is that the vision?
That would certainly be up to each municipality. Our policy applies to the state road network and anything that we fund or implement ourselves as Maine DOT. I know there are about 10 or maybe just over 10 different municipalities in the state of Maine that have their own complete streets policy. But you do have to keep in mind how, you know, jurisdiction changes. Some towns have more road jurisdiction than others, or some have what we call urban compacts, where those towns have some jurisdiction over state transportation infrastructure. And in those, they're kind of operating on what their municipal policies are, but they're also operating on, you know, what Maine DOT says they need to do because they're in an urban compact. So jurisdiction can play a big part of that as well. And Dave probably works on a lot of different roads, whether it's a local road or certainly state roads going through Camden. So there's some differences there.
So, Dakota, could you send us if you have the names of those towns that are already incorporating complete streets? And I know that at the DOT you're reviewing it, but, and then a question for Dave. Is this something that Public Works directors talk about, or are you doing this initiative on your own? And has the DOT reached out with complete streets to Public Works directors? How is it filtered down, is my question.
So, I mean, my understanding, I mean, the way it happened for me is I just became more educated about it because it was brought up in Rockland. And I just said, all right, this is part of the way we do business, and I just need to come up to speed with all of it. So I started earlier on when this stuff really kind of began. It isn't something that's usually shared amongst all Public Works directors. I think it's shared amongst some Public Works directors, but it isn't like, there's no real Public Works director symposium where everybody gets together and talks about this stuff for the most part. I mean, they have one convention a year, but it doesn't really discuss this kind of thing. So I think it's you got to become self-educated and motivated, and you have to be involved in the projects with the DOT. You learn a lot from the DOT. I have learned, Dakota, you might want to think about when you're doing your policy that I love working with most of the people at MDOT, but I do know that, there's all these different factions of DOT.
Mm-hmm.
And, the construction guys will try to avoid touching a sidewalk because they don't want to have to bring it up to the standard that it needs to be. So that's their technique now. They say, all right, we can't touch the sidewalk. So they're paving up to the fog line and they're leaving everything else alone because then they don't have to go and redo the whole sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be a little bit better language in there that talks a little bit about, if you do the street, you have to do the sidewalk. It can't be you touch the sidewalk before you got to bring it up to the standard. I don't want to call anybody, I don't want to give away anybody's secrets here, but that's always been the little, what do you call it? The little loophole, I guess we'll call it, to get out of fixing something. We should just be looking at the whole thing, and there shouldn't be a way of wiggling out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So can I
don't tell anybody I said that either.
No, you're good. It depends on our scope of our project too. What kind of paving we're doing or what kind of work we're doing, whether we can redo the entire corridor or if we're just touching a certain type of scope.
I understand it's a money thing a lot of times, but
Dakota, I have a question, and that is, it kind of touches on something we had before your conversation, before your presentation, and just, Dave is kind of our exemplar of Public Works people. And from what you said, that Maine DOT really promotes this based on what you touch. And the question is, it sounds like we're at a point where either some best practices, some exemplars, some suggestions could go out with, some bells and whistles around this stuff to communities that maybe aren't there yet. And so I'm just wondering if there's a way to sort of package this in a way that can be an invitation. We're a 2-town committee, which is unusual, in many areas, and we operate very differently. So we're always walking this line between how one town does it versus another town. But if there were some best practices, if there were some opportunities for, that it's not that this has to happen this way, but is there a way to, that it's not just about what DOT does, but hey, towns, here you go.
Yeah, certainly. There are best practices and books and books and books of design guidance and planning guidance that encompasses complete streets and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. So, folks like Dave and others who, are working locally in the transportation world probably also have many of those books and guidance, or work with DOT if they're looking for that. But we can certainly kind of be a technical resource if we need to, and are always inviting towns to talk to us. It does take a a willingness to, to want to work on it though. If it's
Right.
not if it's not in the state infrastructure, we can't go in and say, hey, you should do this. But we're always, always willing to talk to folks about certain concerns and things like that. And beyond the policy, it really has to do with kind of being willing to put in the effort and willing to focus on the outcomes. I don't necessarily care whether or not a town has adopted a complete streets policy. What I care is the outcomes, on the transportation system in that town. So I want people biking and walking to be safe. Whether there's a written policy or not, I don't actually care as long as the outcomes are what we're looking for. And so a lot of folks have focused on that. And like Dave said, there's resources, and he's learned a lot, and a lot of other municipal folks have learned a lot. We worked pretty closely with them, and the policies is great, and it's on paper. I do like to, it's nice to see that towns officially adopt this, but what I'm really after is outcomes for people biking and walking.
Oh, go ahead, Allison.
Is there any kind of a training program or certification? What I've found being on the select board for a while and talking with different people in different towns is like there's the level of knowledge of municipal employees or elected officials is obviously really varied, and you don't have to pass a test to be a public works director. And when Dave came, he introduced all of these sort of ideas and possibilities, and but it seems like most of what he's learned has been self-directed, and that it would be great to be able to send public officials or staff people to some kind of a training where you could just guarantee they've gotten the basics and why this stuff matters.
That was sort of the base. Thank you, Allison. That was sort of the basis of my question about whether there's any value of incorporating complete streets, because if Dave goes away, the next person may have no basis for it. But if the town has it in their comprehensive plan and they've embraced it, then presumably
we embrace lots of things in our comprehensive plan. I'd like to be able to have something that says, everybody's going to go to this training every year, or where somebody can evaluate this person has this knowledge. We send all police officers to the police academy, and then they get this base level of knowledge. Is there that kind of thing for, because they become expert, DOT does all this plowing stuff, they've got that down to a science, and everybody learns how to do that. And then it's like up to each public works director whether they care about the other stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, that is a much more direct way of what I was trying to get at, because every town is totally different. And I'm in education, and I'll tell you, you've got the state Department of Ed, every school does it different, but at the same time, there are proficiencies that everybody has to have in common.
I want the training to be in Hawaii.
And people like me, like you become an elected official and you don't know all this stuff. And so you don't know what you're missing either. And then we have all these committees, and we're talking about, I don't really like these raised sidewalks, and you just babble on about this stuff, but there's no standard of, and you don't know what you're missing until you go and.
I'm not aware of a main specific training opportunity outside of what our local roads center offers, which is probably put on that plowing training that you mentioned. Our local road center does do some pedestrian related trainings from time to time, sidewalk wise. We did an ADA training kind of last winter and spring there. I did some presentations with public works folks. But nationally, there are a lot of organizations, kind of professional organizations that folks can join, or conferences that you can attend. There's a great one I went to last May called NACTO, National Association of City Transportation Officials. NACTO is essentially where all the cool progressive bike design comes from. So stuff you see in New York, stuff you see in Denver, stuff you see in the big cities. A lot of that design and kind of street way of thinking about the streets comes from groups like that. So there's nationwide, there's a lot of resources available, but it does takes effort, and it takes money to go to conferences and things. It takes effort to stay up on all this design guidance and things, I could spend 40 hours a week reading guidance from, associations and the Federal Highway Administration too. So,
No, but I think
So-
Allison's right. I think that,
Mhm.
like main local roads, I mean, they've kind of, I'm not going to say slacked off a little, but they've kind of slacked off a little on the training. They used to have the whole road ranger, thing. And
Mhm.
it's like, it's kind of fizzled out ever since a couple people retired and COVID happened. And I mean, honestly, there's really no training opportunity anymore for public works directors. If anything, it's gone the other way. There's less training now.
Mhm.
And honestly, you talked about networking. That's really the only networking that we get to have. And you know how it goes, right? You kind of get stagnated when you're working in a bubble with nobody else around you that you
Mhm.
can commiserate with. So I will say, and I mean, I know you don't have the ability to do that, but if you could maybe mention that, that is a good point. We've lost a lot of our additional training and networking stuff since it's been about 3 years. It's gone right downhill, and I'm not trying to, point fingers or anything. It seems like nobody's really picked it back up again.
Maybe you could hang it. This is a great idea. Maybe you could hang it on the active transportation plan training.
Hey, Dakota,
Yeah.
could you put into chat maybe if ideas occur to you, but also that organization you just mentioned, that where all the most progressive ideas are coming from right now?
That would be
Hector.
great. We should.
I wrote it down.
We
Yeah.
could put money into our budget and to our town budget to make sure that we can send people to things like that.
Is it any CTO?
An A, I
Yes.
think.
NACTO.
NACTO.
Just put that in the
Oh,
chat.
thank
I'm
you.
also-
Yeah, yeah.
gonna put
Thank
a
you.
link to a document. I believe this has a list of all complete streets policies in the United States. I don't know how often this is updated, but there are 10 or so main related ones listed in here. If that,
Yeah, there are
Something-
so many examples of them. It's an enormous amount of work, really.
Mhm.
Can you think of a
Dakota?
good one? Is there a good one
And
that you?
Dakota, which municipalities right now are really progressive or really making forward movement? You had a slide which mentioned Gardner. Are there other municipalities that are moving forward that we could actually look at what they're doing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question to ask. Camden. I don't know. It is a hard question to ask. I think, some municipalities in Maine are doing great with some things and less great with other things. And, other municipalities maybe, are stronger on their weaknesses, but weaker on other things. Portland, I'll be honest, Portland talks a good talk. They're really interested in this kind of stuff. They've also got a lot of infrastructure though, so it's tough for them to implement things because they've got a lot of roads and a lot of area to cover and a lot of people to try to serve with the resources that they have, the funding that they have. So there's always limitations, but Portland's trying to be as progressive as they can. Lewiston does a good job with trying to get after pedestrian safety. They've actually partnered with us on a lot of funding opportunities for smaller grants to fix intersections or things like that. They've done a good job, but it really depends on the community and on the timing. And there's certainly things that beyond just building infrastructure that are important as well to
Yeah,
work with.
and 4 million annually is not a lot of money.
No, and we do throw some state money at these types of projects as well as other funding and apply for larger discretionary grant programs. We've been lucky to get a couple of recent federal RAISE grants that have large active transportation components in them as well. So we're always, we always have an appetite for funding and kind of a short list of projects that are ready. So when an opportunity comes up, we're applying. Whether or not we're successful, we usually have enough projects in the hopper to put in a good application for whenever something comes up.
You think that the stop and go intersection would be a good VPI?
It might, yeah.
It seems to fall into the category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could talk about that.
Be careful when you mention it. Everybody's afraid of that one.
No,
Yeah.
don't say that. I mean, we are afraid of getting hurt there, but we're not afraid of tackling
It's
it.
dangerous. It's really,
Right.
you know, Rockland's got the Burger King Maverick Street intersection, and we've got the Stop and Go.
Mhm.
You know,
Risking
both-
risking devolving into the conversation, I thought it would be a great demonstration project. Is that what it's called? I forget. Where you put up plastic things and stuff. And
Yeah.
we could move the lane over, the turning lane over, just to see what happens.
yeah, we actually
And-
had them almost on the hook to put up like a temporary stoplight.
Yeah,
Because they've already done a study. This is all of the data is there.
yeah,
Given us like 4 different scenarios of how to time the intersection, depending on who waits the
Yeah.
longest, or how you even it all out, or how you
Yeah, yeah.
seasonally change it, or, I mean, I don't know, we talked about it, but it's kind of fizzled out a little bit.
we'll get her.
Dakota, so the e-bikes, is there somebody who's tracking how the use of e-bikes are growing? Is that the Bicycle Coalition, or does the state keep, because we don't have to register them, do we? Or do we register them?
Nope.
No. So we
They
don't,
are- They are a bicycle under state law, as long as they fall into one of the 3 legally defined classes of e-bikes.
Mhm.
So there's no registration required. Tracking wise, yeah, Bicycle Coalition of Maine would be a good resource. I did look the other day. I have access to some data through the company called Strava. Strava is an app that a lot of people use to track their walking or running or cycling or swimming or other exercise and recreational activities. As a bike ped professional, they share some data from time to time, and I was playing around with data 2 weeks ago, and from 2019 to 2023, e-bike use as a percentage share of all Strava recorded rides went from like 0.5% to 2.4%. So that's certainly showing the growth in the use of e-bikes. Again, that's not, I wouldn't call it a representative sample of people who bike in Maine. That's just a sample of people who use the Strava app and report that they're on an e-bike versus not an e-bike.
Sometimes I just wonder, if e-bikes do take over in the better weather, all of this, the paradigm that we look at stuff is, bikes and pedestrians versus vehicles and trucks. But maybe that will adjust, and we have to adjust the design. So it would be interesting to see how streets in cities are being redesigned.
Yeah. Mhm.
We've got this, just switching to Route 1 North, that we've got this DOT rebuild.
Mhm.
And is it too late to incorporate anything out there in terms of traffic calming, painting on the road on the new highway?
You're talking the section of Route 1 that approaches the Lincolnville town line?
Yeah.
Yes. Traffic calming wise, at this point, no. It'll have paved shoulders in this project, so I believe the shoulders will be wider than they currently are. That's about all the scope that we have in this project at the moment.
Is
Traffic.
there even the possibility of putting the rip-rappy kind of things as a shoulder?
The rumble strips?
So rumple strips, so that if like even that as a way.
Yes, we do a lot of centerline rumble strips in Maine. We don't do a lot of edgeline rumble strips yet. I'm kind of hoping to push us toward that when we have shoulder space to use rumble strips on the edge line. Other states are doing that. I grew up and came from Michigan a little over a year ago, and they have a fair amount of rumble strips in the shoulder on the edge line. I liked them when I would ride, just because if you hear that sound, that's someone's tires coming into the shoulder. So
Is it expensive?
it's not terribly expensive in the scope, grand scope of a project. It's a little bit expensive if you were to send a crew out to cut rumble strips alone without having a larger project involved, just because it kind of takes some specialized equipment. I think we've talked about working with some contractors in the state of Maine to maybe try to convince some of them to buy a narrower cutting head.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if you could do a narrower rumple strip, yeah.
Cyclists would like that too, actually.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And,
So-
and anything we do on the edge line, I would certainly recommend that we would do like 6 or 8 feet on, 6 or 8 feet off, 6 or 8 feet on, 6 or 8 feet off. So there's gaps, so that if you're riding, you could shoot the gap and get in and out of that shoulder. Or if you were turning left or you needed to go around something or something, it wouldn't just be like a
Exactly.
continuous rumble strip for miles.
Yeah, it's tough when you're riding those. Yeah, if you're trying to avoid something or turning.
Is that
Mhm.
something that Pathways Committee should advocate for in this reconstruction? Because that is, what do we call it? Complete streets? It's happening underneath. I mean, it's a complete rebuild underneath.
I
If
mean,
you if you get the opportunity to, sure. I don't actually remember off the top of my head what stage this project is at.
They're cutting, they just finished cutting the trees.
Okay. I don't
They're working on
know,
the bridge, working on the
have they already
bridge
done
next.
public engagement?
Oh, yeah. It's way
don't
past
think-
that.
I mean, it seems like you're probably not supposed to just give us the magic formula to successfully lobby DOT in the background and make everybody's lives difficult, but it's obviously not too late for that. It's just a matter of money. So right, I mean, if Susan Collins could make this happen faster than it was going to, there's nothing bad
Okay.
about trying to lobby for it, right?
No, nothing bad for it. I'll look into it. To be honest, I think I can be more effective myself
Oh, good.
sometimes than external folks lobbying. I tend to get more agreeance if it sounds like an idea we came up with on our own sometimes.
Good, Dakota. That's great.
So I'll ask about it and see kind of where that project's at and see if we could do something. I know we've talked about implementing edge lane rumble strips, so maybe this is an opportunity to try that out.
And
Before-
show us,
Thank you.
Dakota, if I can ask a question, I'm going to shift the subject to the issue of utility poles in sidewalks. This is something that must be a statewide problem. It can't just be a problem in Camden, and we need some state assistance in making a statewide law against that. We really need help with that because the various efforts that we've attempted are just falling flat, and I'm sure Dave St. Laurent can attest to that in his own efforts. Can you tell us what the DOT can do to help with that issue?
I don't know if I have a great answer other than Dave should just get them to move the poles. And I know that's a lot easier said than done. We have similar issues on our projects. We tend to have a little bit more weight, behind us and can get them to move poles if we need to. Certainly with a project, if they're in our right of way, they have to do what we ask them to do. So if they're in local right of way, more or less it should be the same, but I get that they can be tough to work with. I don't know. We have a few folks who are utility coordinators. They may be able to provide some kind of technical assistance or, help you identify the right person at the utility to start to, to bug them about it. But if those utilities are in the public right of way, it's the public agency that kind of controls that. So they need to
So
move,
are
they
you-
can move.
Dave is like
So
the
this is-
master at this. He's actually really doing it. He's made a lot of progress.
Mhm.
Yeah, but not as fast as I'd like. I want to show you a picture that was on Route 1.
Mhm.
I mean, it's almost
So-
comical.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible.
I
So
mean-
you're saying, Dakota, that it's not changing the laws or making it actually forbidden legally to put a utility pole in the sidewalk is not something Maine DOT can do. Then we have to lobby our local representatives in the state legislature. I mean, to me, it's not. It doesn't make sense to me that we have to depend on the good-hearted nature of the utility company that we're approaching. this has to be a law. I mean, this is a safety
There is
issue.
a law. We have
It probably already is covered in law. You just have to, it takes some work to kind of police them and keep track of what they're doing. But if it's in a state right of way, they have to move those poles when we tell them to move those poles. And if they, like, every once in a while, they will come put a pole where they shouldn't. We just try to keep track of that, and if we notice it, we, call them up and say, "Hey, move this pole." And
So-
usually they agree, or they know what they did.
Dakota, I think you're thinking of new projects. If there's an existing state road with telephone poles in the middle of the sidewalk, do we contact you to say those telephone poles need to be moved? Sorry, utility poles?
Yeah, that would be up to some discretion. You'd have to, I mean, depending on how many poles, you're gonna have to fix the sidewalk anyway. So in some cases, you may be looking at sidewalk reconstruction at that point. If you're gonna move 10 poles and on that street, and you're gonna have a bunch of cut up sidewalk anyway. That's kind of, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right and reconstruct the sidewalk while you're at it.
Well, we'd like to do it right. Right, Dave?
Yeah, I'm not making any excuses. It's a tough thing because you only have so much space, and then you've got the fight, so to speak, between the current property owner who thinks it's his front yard and the town. And then what happens is that these lines, from an engineering standpoint, or utility poles, have to be in alignment. And when you take them out of alignment, then they're not supporting each other. So it's not a matter of changing one, it's a matter of changing a sequence of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, the CMP doesn't want to change, 20 telephone poles in line, or even 5. So, they end up always deferring to kind of keeping in an alignment. I think that the best chance of fixing problems like on Elm Street is when we redo the sidewalk in the section that we've talked about. That's when we need to notify them to either move them to the house side of the right of way, or make the sidewalk wider and take up some real estate on the road. I mean, that's kind of when you have to do that. It's tough. I mean, and then the other issue is that when you move them inland, you move them inboard, so to speak, towards the properties, you have all the tree issues. So then you get the conflict with all the trees. I mean, it's not as cut and dry and easy to fix as you would think. There's a lot more kind of going on, and you do one thing, and then there's a problem with the thing that you do, and other people get upset about, what it's a tough thing to completely fix. And I don't think there's just a rule that you can put in place that fixes all of it. I think you got to be on the ground, watching when those right of way things come up, and being involved in the placement of the pole on site, case by case. Otherwise, it's a matter of each project, you get them to move them all out of the way. I wish it was so cut and dry and easy. I do think that there was a lot of neglect, and I think they took the easy way out more often than not. And those are the ones that we can fix. But the larger issue, like Elm Street, that's a tough one. That there's no real, you can't just put one pole out of alignment to get it out of the sidewalk. You got to basically,
that can be part of a bigger project too.
it has to be part of a bigger project. Yeah.
And Dakota will be coming to you with that Elm Street Route 1 project, if you haven't already heard about it.
Okay.
But Dave did get, so sometimes it's been as simple as people notifying him in the moment when they see a telephone pole going in. He's gotten a bunch of them moved for the first
I had to get a
time.
little radical with them, but I got the liaison and the CMP manager down here and everything, because I was going to cut one down that they put in our sidewalk. I told them I was going to bring the news in, and I was going to film me cutting it down and explain to them why. And they didn't like that. They decided that wasn't good PR, and I got everybody's attention and had like 5 people down here the next day. But you can't use that tactic all the time. It doesn't always work.
I like that one. I'll tell our utility guys that one.
Yeah, no, it got their attention.
Another one that Dave's been experimenting with and we've been advocating for are these things that we call pave arounds, which is paving around the utility pole, sort of making the sidewalk do an S around or a C around the pole. Dakota, have you encountered that anywhere else, other towns?
Oh yeah. Both as retrofits or as design in new projects. You know, if you've got the right of way to do it, you know, the pole is usually got to fit in there somewhere. So sometimes if the pole has to be on the curb, then you kind of swoop the sidewalk around the pole. Whatever you need to do to make it work.
Can I ask a quick question on the matter of speed limits? Is that okay?
Yeah. I have one about that too, Allison. I'd like a follow-up when you're done.
So I know in general, we're moving toward trying to design streets that people don't go fast, you know, aren't as inclined to go as fast on. But then we also have streets that that's not going to happen right away. The issue of who sets the speed limits and how they do it I've gotten so many different answers on that. We found a state law that said that the town can opt in to setting their own speed limits, all this stuff around and around and around with different emails. And it was like a law that passed that never got implemented. What is the best way, or are there times when speed limits should be reduced? Because it seems like what we always get told is, well, you know, we could do a speed study, but we have to warn you, they might raise the speed. It's this scare tactic. But when I've read through all the DOT, all the design manual stuff, I can find plenty of streets in Camden that meet the criteria for 25 and they're set at 30 or 35. And how can we try to?
Yeah, that is a great question with probably a complicated response. I'll start with, at the moment, Maine DOT sets speed limits on all public roads in the state of Maine, whether it's a local road or state aid road. There are some municipalities that can opt, I think it's some, I don't know if all can opt in and set speed limits on their own in accordance to whatever that state law says. As I'm aware of at the moment, no municipalities are doing that.
We tried to send a letter. There's a template.
They tell you if you do it, then you own the street forever and they won't help you with anything. Or there's some crazy thing that goes along with that too.
DOT said that?
I will forward you all this email communication.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy. It was like somebody is pulling the string. They obviously was like a law that got passed that they didn't want to get passed, but you get to the end. They sent us a letter saying that we want you to know that you qualify as one of the municipalities that can. This was like in 2007 or something. I won't go into it all now, but
Allison, when you say they, is that MDOT? They sent a letter?
Yes, MDOT, when this law was passed, obviously it was really frustrating to somebody else. They got the legislature to vote on it. And then DOT put something on their website and sent a thing out saying you could set your own speed limits. I don't think we need to set our own speed limits necessarily. I think that if DOT were to look at the guidance that they've set and say, well, this is an area where there are pedestrians and there are driveways within this amount of space, it would easily pass the test for lowering the speed limit but I don't know why that when you actually approach them about that, they sort of try to scare you into not asking.
Yeah, I can speak to some of that. Send me that stuff if you have that readily available sometime. I'm curious about the history of that. I really only know about the history of speed limit setting in the last 2 years, maybe. But so I've actually been a special internal work group at Maine DOT over the past 11 months, almost a year, looking at how we set speed limits, how other agencies and jurisdictions set speed limits, how it's done in other states. Really with the goal of trying to increase voluntary speed compliance. So making sure that drivers are driving the speed that they should drive on their own, without having a law enforcement officer chasing them around trying to make sure they're driving an appropriate speed. And certainly roadway design is part of that. Our group has come up with a draft list of recommendations that we're working toward implementing. One of them is actually to create a roadway context classification system in the state of Maine. So Dave, you're probably familiar with what federal functional class is on roadways, like, arterials and collectors and things like that, those types of streets. This will be a classification that we create on the spectrum of, rural, undeveloped to urban, and everything in between, and then would start to assign that to the roadway network, and then could better correlate certain types of design or certain appropriate speed ranges to different contexts. So if we're in a suburban context, we might expect an appropriate speed range to be this. In an urban context, it might be this. Such on, and then also tie that to our complete streets policy. It will actually be tied into part of our complete streets policy as it's drafted now. The other recommendation is that we are developing a new speed limit setting methodology. So the past 5 years or so, we've used a tool called US Limits 2, which is a web-based tool that our traffic engineers input a bunch of information about the roadway in. So they would input the observed speeds, so observed 85th percentile and 50th percentile speeds, as well as traffic volume, different things about the roadway, how many driveway access points there are. I believe it does ask about pedestrian or bicycle use, a couple other things. Then it would spit out a speed, and that's what we would post generally.
So is this going to be a reevaluation of roads, or be a request to reevaluate a road?
So we're not going to reevaluate it all the roads at once. We don't have the capacity to set new speed limits everywhere. But we'll get to that in a second. So the speed limit setting recommendation coming out of this work group is that we're going to create a new tool based on a national research study, where we're going to use a spreadsheet-based tool to set speed limits that will take into account the roadway context classification system that we put together, as well as the existence of bike ped facilities, density of driveways, land use, a number of other things, and we have control over how that tool works. So we're currently testing that tool alongside US Limits 2, the methodology we've been using at the moment, and kind of modifying this tool and playing with it. The goal is that we'll have this new speed limit setting tool at some point in the future. That will be our primary tool that we use, and we won't use.
Well, that's positive.
Yes. So the other positive thing, in my opinion, is that we will entertain municipal requests for 20-mile-per-hour road or 20-mile-per-hour speed limits on local roads only in residential context.
Oh,
So these are
that's right up your alley, Allison.
I keep sending them articles like 20 miles per hour is what's being recommended in all these other places, and oh, that's great.
We're getting there. We're not going to post everything at 20, but if it's a contiguous neighborhood, if it's a residential area that makes sense, think about like a place where the basketball hoop is facing the street and the kids play basketball there. That's the type of context we're talking about when we're talking about the 20s. Again, this is all pretty draft.
Taking away everybody's joy, Dakota.
But here over the spring, we'll be developing exactly what our policy is and process to evaluate those. So we're not quite ready to entertain a request at this point, but we'll be developing some type of process to do so as we work through some of this.
Dakota, what's the national?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. What, just quickly, Dakota, what's the national study you just cited?
The one that we're building our speed limit tool off of is called NCHRP Study 966. NCHRP stands for National Cooperative Highway Research Program, I think. One of those billions of acronyms there in my head. But they're kind of a primary research body that does transportation-related research.
Okay, great, thanks. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the gist of the story is we've got some speed-related work that we're doing. We're not quite ready to implement it yet. We're also really going to tie this to some traffic calming and speed management tools. So if we find streets that are operating, on the higher end out of what we would consider an appropriate range for that context, we would then be, building a kind of a toolbox of traffic calming tools. So raised pedestrian crossing, speed tables, signage, pavement marking, speed feedback signs, all those types of tools, and better track before and after data so we can learn what traffic calming measures are impactful and what types of application.
So we have a traffic calming request policy for neighborhoods right now, because we get a lot of requests, and a lot of the time it's people that it's small streets, and they think that the people are going a lot faster than they actually are sometimes, just because even 25 or 30 in some of these places is too fast. But we've had a hard time managing the way that the different people on the streets feel about it. So we would have people come to us, and then we would try to implement something, and then we'd find out that half the people on the street actually didn't agree. And so now we are going through this process where they have to get 90% of the residents on the street to say that they want the town to look at it. And we developed a whole process, and now about, I think, 4 streets have done this. And now it's up to our town planning staff and Dave to come up with recommendations. Is that something that you guys would be interested in getting involved with? It's always, as a town, we're always looking to be able to say, well, this is what so-and-so recommends, because to take away the liability of it, or I also saw a video that said that you have materials that you can lend to municipalities, like those bollards and signage and things like that. Is that true?
Yes, potentially. We've got a huge order of materials that we're waiting on arriving. Someday they'll arrive, and I know some of them are already spoken for, but we do want to help make materials available. As far as being involved in local street traffic calming, I would say the official response is probably, have fun. We'll stay out of that one. For the most part, we've got enough to do on the state network. The unofficial response there is, I think we could find some technical assistance from Maine DOT to help municipalities if they're trying to pursue traffic calming on local roads. And certainly as we develop this traffic calming toolbox and help to quantify which of these tools are effective in which types of situations, that would be something we'd certainly be willing to share. But I don't think we are, really interested in, especially diving it into, public perception or anything locally, with trying to convince folks to do things locally. Dave?
You have a speed hump design that you could let me have, like an actual engineered design based on speed limit, like
Yeah.
to build off of, that I could use.
Yes, I don't think we changed the design based on posted speed.
Like a plowable one too.
That's what I was
something-
wondering. Is a
Yeah.
plowable speed bump? I've always just said impossible.
No, well, they have it. I mean, it's not as effective as a short one. It's more of a hump. They have one, and we went and looked at one in a street in Rockland on Cedar Street. They did it. I mean, I think it could be a little higher, but I want to know what the design is to be plowable, I guess, something that, that'd be great to have that if I could get it from you.
Yeah, I'll put that in my notes, and if I don't send that to you in the next few days, shoot me a reminder.
Okay.
We use speed tables most often. So
Right.
A 10-foot flat table with 6-foot approaches, kind of angled approaches coming up. 4 inches, I think, is the norm. We'll go less than 4 inches in some cases. I did have a consultant try to design a 6-inch raise on a table recently. And I told them not to, because I thought that was too much, but apparently maybe there's an appetite to really make those things tall sometimes. So maybe we'll see 6-inch ones sometimes, but I think 6 inches is pretty significant. It really depends on the location. I know Augusta has a handful around in more of a neighborhood street context, and there's some designs we can find that are more of a speed hump and less of a table. We've been trying to taper them at the ends, so you don't really have an impact on drainage, because that drainage can flow, over that taper, between the speed table and the curb. So you're not having to install 4 new catch basins or something.
Right. I mean, that's an example. Before, for years, if anybody brought up anything like that, it was like, oh no, impossible, plowing, and everybody knows that you just can't do this. And then residents are like, but we see it work in these other places. And the town's like, no, 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 sorry, you know. And
Yeah.
now we're getting like, oh, well, maybe that would be possible. And
Yeah, change happens slowly.
Yes.
We've speed tables on some of our projects, or raised pedestrian crossings on some recent projects. Orono's done some. I think last year Auburn, in one of our projects, built a raised intersection, which might be the first raised intersection in the state of Maine.
Where was that?
That is,
Didn't you say Auburn?
Yeah.
yes, Auburn.
but where?
I
Kristen and Auburn are doing so much cool stuff.
am looking on the map. I believe
Center Street,
Elm and High is where that was done.
Elm and High.
Yep, Elm and High. You can actually see it on Google Maps imagery.
Already?
Yes, yep. The street view is not updated yet, but Google Maps imagery shows it. So we're changing slowly, as long as the rest, along with the rest of the world. Some folks are getting really good at this, and we're coming along. We'll get there eventually. But I think one thing that we seem to be very open to talking about a lot of stuff, and discussing what might work, what might not work. So we're always open to having a conversation and seeing if we can design something or think about something.
Was that a state road, Elm and High?
Doesn't look like it.
Let me go to the map here. It might not be, but it might be something we had funded in partnership with them.
It's in the middle of a residential area.
Is
Rawson Avenue.
Right.
No, I was thinking downtown.
Elm Street is a
Stop and go.
state road.
It is a state road?
Yeah, Elm Street is a state road.
Huh?
I want to bring us back. We were talking about utility poles. Allison posted a couple of Dave pictures in the chat, Dakota.
This is what pushed me over the edge.
Yeah,
It's
you're in
wonderful.
the right there. Do what you need to do to take care of that one.
Oh, where's the photo?
I put it in the
It's in the
chat.
chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's pretty egregious.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of them right in a row.
Look at that was supposed to be the improvement, the new one there, right? Dead center. And then they left the dirt there.
Yeah.
But you got them. They not there anymore, right?
I made them move both of those, I think. You know what they told me? They leave the dirt there. So when they pull the old pole, they can fuse the dirt to fill the old pole. And if anybody knows how this works, it takes them 3 years, if you're lucky, to move the pole. So you get this
Right.
pile of dirt there for 3 years.
Is that
Can
a
you
problem,
imagine?
Dave? Is that a problem, Dave?
Can you imagine?
No, it's crazy.
I was like, are you joking? That's
insane.
that's what you're telling me? I was like, I couldn't believe it.
The
I want to
Twilight.
know who took the time to set the stones around there in the pretty little circle.
I think
Probably-
that's just
That's
The
just broken
residents.
pavement.
So if you said, Dakota, that because the utility poles break up the pavement anyway, and if you had to move them, you'd have to move them all in a line, and then the whole sidewalk would have to be redone. The next step is just bury them under the sidewalk and then repave the sidewalk.
There
Why
are
is that
pros
so
and
hard,
cons
Dave?
to that as well. One of the major cons to underground utilities is cost. We had I'll give you an example. I won't tell you which town, but a town I would say significantly smaller, at least in kind of its downtown scale than Camden, got an estimate of $15 million to put their utilities underground just in their downtown. So it's a big job. And then you got, there's some pros and cons. Pros, they're not in the way. Another con is frost heave, and they're a lot harder to fix if you have to dig up the street to get to them.
you're
Rather than just having
really
one.
echoey. Like
Yeah,
it,
something changed. Anita, can you
you
put yours
sounded
on?
good when you started, but now you sound really echoey.
I think it might be Anita. Let's try her on mute.
I don't think it's Anita. Anita sounded fine. I'm talking about Dakota.
Oh, come on.
It's not
Is that
Anita. Oh,
better?
you think Anita because Anita's not muted. It's impacting Dakota.
Dakota, say something.
Can you hear me better now?
Must be his connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Just a huge echo.
Well, this has been
Yeah, that was good. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, fantastic.
Dakota, we really appreciate your fresh take and glad you're coming from a state that I've always been impressed with the pedestrian bike infrastructure in Michigan. And so it's good to learn from other states that are far further along. I mean, Maine it is nowhere near. Maine has so many impediments to making good pedestrian and bicycle pathways, given the nature of the landscape, but the willpower has not been there either. So it's good to know that there's somebody at the DOT who's thinking about this and who knows a lot more than we've known in past years. So appreciate the time you've taken to come talk with us too.
Yeah, no problem. I don't often have all the answers for questions that people ask me, but I'm happy to help connect with other resources that we have or other resources that we can find to help find answers to questions.
Real quick,
Yeah.
before you go, Dakota,
Yeah.
any reason, would we be contacting Patrick anymore for any questions?
Patrick is now working for the Federal Highway Administration. He's still in Maine. He's based out of their Augusta office. I don't know how closely he works with local folks and communities and municipalities from time to time. I actually saw him this morning at a site visit in Brunswick, but I don't know unless you're working on something that has kind of a federal grant or federal nexus. I would say generally not, but feel free to if there's a need, I guess.
And just extending to you, I hope we can, if you're in this area, I'd love to give you a tour of the things we're working on, plan to work on, and succeeded at doing over these past years.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to bring my bike into town once there's a little less snow on the ground.
I'll ride with you.
That's good. Any other thoughts or questions? I have a few notes here to follow up with everyone.
I'm wondering if you'd have time to tell us a little bit about what brought you here and what your background is in Michigan and so on.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, I started this job in October of 2022. So I've been a little more than a year now. Previous to this, I lived in Michigan my entire life. Most recently worked for the Michigan Department of Natural Resources in their kind of state parks division. I was their non-motorized trails person. So anything that had to do with hiking and biking or cross-country skiing, equestrian trails, funding, planning, design, working with stakeholders. On recreational trails, that's what I did. I also managed a federal funding grant program that is a sister program to the bike ped program that we have here at Maine DOT. Very similar funds. There's kind of a recreational trails version and there's a transportation version. So that was pretty similar to what I did back then. What drew me to Maine, I had visited a couple of times and really enjoyed Maine, and I'd gotten to a point in the agency that I worked for in Michigan where it might have been time to, find a change. There was some reorganization happening and I had certain thoughts about it and was looking for something and decided to come to Maine. So it's been great so far.
Dakota, are you helping Rockport with its DPI?
I have not been directly involved in that, but I just read over the scope of work for that this morning, so I'd be prepared in case anyone asks me about it. I know they're getting to the point. I think they expect maybe some recommendations next week or very soon.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, me too.
And you reminded me, Dakota, this never ends, but we still have a few more minutes. one of the things that has come up off and on is an e-bike policy on trails or multi-use trails. And some of the e-bikes are pretty powerful, and I don't know where they're going, and just and also on one wheels and other electric sort of motorized things. So I don't know, is MDOT working on a policy? I think National Parks worked on one, at least they did up at up at Mount Desert, up in
Yeah.
Acadia.
So Maine DOT is not working on anything policy related to what I'll call micro mobility devices. I know that the federal land management agencies certainly have done some heavier policy making. You know, the Park Service and the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management have for you know properties that they manage. In general, I'm in favor of more people using them, so I'm pretty hesitant to go after policy that restricts them. It's also super hard to enforce. Some jurisdictions have created speed limits on trails, and that's all well and good, but it's not enforceable. No one has the resources to enforce speeds on the roads. No one has the resources to. So I think the better way to approach it is outreach and education and kind of building a culture of you know being a neighbor. You know, everyone you meet on the trail is your neighbor. You know, stop and say hi. You know, you may be on a bike and they may be walking, or they may be pushing a stroller and you may be on rollerblades or whatever it is. But you know, everyone's allowed to use the trail, and as long as you stop and say hi and wave, you can kind of you can reduce a lot of those potential conflicts if you remember to be courteous, be neighborly. It's not a racetrack. That's kind of my philosophy behind it. But certainly I'm aware of a lot of jurisdictions that have pursued policy. South Portland had discussed a lot of policy related to e-bike use on the Beltline Trail recently, and came very, very, very close to prohibiting e-bikes on the Beltline Trail. As far as I know, no policy has actually been enacted recently, but my perspective is that it comes back to kind of trail etiquette and
I like it. I like that. I like that, what you just said, Dakota. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. We have a 7:30 cutoff time. And Linda, I'm going to plead guilty. I think you said there was a second item on the agenda, but I don't remember what it was. Dakota, you're welcome to stay. Dave, get out of here. Go home. You can take your jacket. You can take your jacket off.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hold on, though. Are you gonna, do you sure you want to, I mean, I'm not saying Dave has to stay, but are you guys gonna talk at all about the select board meeting and presenting?
Well, sure, we absolutely can. I don't know when that's scheduled for, but let's tend to the second agenda item, which was real administrative. But it involves our discussion last month or the month before, I can't even remember, of meeting quarterly as the two towns. So that is where we officially, this is when we officially decide, because it is up to this committee. So we need to take a vote. And the model that we spoke about it last time, and the model is that we would meet in person quarterly, and then meet as separate towns for the interim. I guess it would be 2 meetings, right? And I was reminded from Orion that Rockport has a different set of rules governing Zoom. So hybrid meetings, you have to meet in person with the option of people Zooming in, but you cannot have a Zoom only meeting. So that's 2 factors. So, I don't know who else has thoughts on this. If anybody wants to make a motion, how you guys are feeling, but I would like to get this piece of business taken care of on the agenda, and then we can talk about the select board meeting, Camden Select Board meeting.
Yikes. Linda, if their policy is that you have to meet in person at a minimum with Zoom in capability, that kills all the last meetings we've been having for multiple years. They've been
Well,
illegal in Rockport's
Well, for the past, since we came out of COVID, which was just, I don't know, last 2020, the beginning of 2023, wasn't it? The COVID manner of
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
So it hasn't been a long time, and I don't think we're going to get our hands slapped, but that I was reminded of that for going forward.
Yeah, but if
I
it's a
see.
combined meeting with both towns, would that change the rules?
Well, I think that's where we have not tread yet. So
my fear is that if we divide up, and I totally get that there are issues and projects that each town are working on separately, but I fear if we get down to 4 or 5 people in a committee, that the energy that drives this committee forward will be diminished or lost or something. And I can't say anything else about it. So we could try it for a year and see how it goes.
even if we meet quarterly, I mean, that's
Yeah,
the calendar goes so fast.
I get that, Linda. What I think is going to happen is that we're going to go huddle up in our individual towns, and nothing's going to happen until the next quarterly meeting.
Well, I don't know.
What
I
do
don't
you
know.
want to do, Linda? You seem to think that this would be better for,
I think we're getting the message from Rockport. Rockport's been talking for a little bit. Why is Pathways, should we just separate? And this, to me, is a compromise that we don't. This is that we meet quarterly. And I know, these months roll around really fast. And I wouldn't mind meeting quarterly, to tell you the truth, to keep the connection and to come with some really set progress that we've made.
I think part of this came from, and I don't have the institutional memory, and clearly Jeff and others do, but this Pathways came out of looking at the multi-use trail, and that was a 2-town project. And pretty much all the other projects we've attempted, the Route 1, which Camden did a fabulous job, that to be a 2-town project, but that we may be losing out on doing Rockport work because Rockport may be feeling that and I'm not getting this right, but that a 2-town project, if it's not a 2-town project, a 2-town committee, if it's not a 2-town project, may be hard for Rockport to get on board with.
you think we end up wasting, like for people like Dave I do see a lot of people like ending up wasting, I don't want to say wasting time, but when you're asking town staff members to participate, and even sometimes committee members, it can be hard. Like I know Heidi was really interested in trails and Aldermere Farm, and then she's sitting around talking about bike lanes on Mechanic Street in Camden for hours and hours. That it would be really good if we could find a way to overcome that. But I still really personally believe in that Camden Rockport connection. My kids go back and forth between Camden and Rockport on their bikes every day. I think that we should really be trying to work maybe together in a more efficient way so that it can be more issue-based. Like we could try to have certain things on the agenda that we're going to talk about this issue or that issue, and people could choose to attend based on the issue. But I think we get really good input from Rockport people sometimes on Camden streets, and really good input from Camden on Rockport stuff sometimes. And
Well,
No,
could-
I mean, I feel especially, the public works part with Dave, I would love to have some some ability to talk about, what was it, the promoting complete streets understandings, whether it's through certification or, like, we wouldn't know about that if we were just meeting as a Rockport team to take back to our Rockport group. So I think the cross-pollination is super important. The
Dave's
question,
a Rockport resident too, so you got that.
yeah,
I was gonna say, you're much stronger as a group than you are separated. Not every project has to be in one town or the other. It's, you're just, I think this should be the model, not try to regress back to separation. I think when people are both towns are working more closely together, things work out better.
yeah, and I don't think we who've met with Rockport people at all support splitting. But we've also got a capacity issue, and if we've got to follow Rockport rules, we've got to kind of find a place that allows us, the capacity. And monthly is a lot because, I serve on a state committee. We meet quarterly, and they're jammed agendas, but there may be some, and it could be that, just working and juggling is a lot, but
I mean, quarterly meetings, saying quarterly meetings, I think I can understand that, and then trying to have subcommittees or whatever in between, that makes a lot more sense to me than saying that we're going to meet separately. There's something about that feels like, can't we just have, certain things that just need to be smaller groups? Could that, the quarterly meeting makes a lot of sense to me, because people that get involved in all this town stuff are really strapped for time. And so I can see a lot of benefits to that and trying to figure out ways to be more productive in between. I just don't like sending the message of separating, because I think Camden Rockport should be trying harder to work together.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of the optics, that I don't, yeah, we can change the language. I don't think that's hard. We can do whatever we want to do. The model proposed is to go quarterly, so that everybody remains fine with this.
Would the two towns continue to meet separately every month?
Well,
And
you
then
could,
two towns
Yeah,
meet,
maybe that's optional.
quarterly?
I think, what's that, Kristen?
Oh, I just said maybe that's optional, if that sounds better to everyone, if we met quarterly and then the towns could maybe have a subcommittee to get together.
Well, I think-
Optionally,
Yeah,
based on what the town thinks.
But no, there should be work being done. I
Right,
totally agree with Allison, is that we've got to accomplish stuff and then report back on a quarterly basis. Here's what's
Right.
happened, or here's what, and communication continues. But I understand, Jeff, that when you shrink the numbers, it's hard. It's a commitment. Either way, it's a commitment, and it's a lot. So
I see what Jeff means or is saying about the energy shrinking with, having smaller numbers, but at the same time, I do think that, maybe each town could get a little more done on their own agendas and then come together and have the energy just fewer times a year. So I do see what Jeff's saying, but at the same time, I see what Rockport is saying as well.
I just don't understand why it has to be by town, because it should be people with there might be somebody that happens to live in Rockport but spends a huge amount of time in going through the stop and go intersection or something
Right.
With me, the elementary school, like, I think there are a lot of Camden people that would be even more motivated on Route 90 issues possibly than some Rockport residents. It's, if
you guys work on that trail from John Street to the high school, that would be,
like, we're supposed to be working on that.
right. That would be,
well, so there's only so much energy to do what we're doing, right? And the Route 90 I don't know what comes next there, right? So we've got to go find out what comes next, what's going to happen in that. And so when you meet quarterly, you just have that extra momentum. Everybody's got their workloads going, so and everybody's
Yeah.
varied.
And I hear that, Linda. And and what comes next with Route 90 is probably more work. And that's why we have more people, because Camden will help. I'm happy to help in Rockport. I love working on these issues in any town. So I'm like, yeah, let's have a charrette. Let's help put the charrette together. Let's have a community information and I'll come to the meetings and we'll help put that together. Or let's do a bicycle survey of the towns and I'll help do that. So I'm totally down for that. Personally, I don't really care that it's Camden or Rockport. Yeah, it's more the issue. It's more the issue. And what trumps it all for me is that we are sister towns and the issues and challenges that we face are so similar and sometimes they connect. They connect physically.
Yeah. I haven't thought this through because I've missed a lot of stuff the last few meetings. Is it something where a quarterly meeting would be the standard, but perhaps if each town had smaller projects that they knew didn't impact, that then they were free to work on those in between, so that the quarterly meetings were the bigger things? Is that something?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You know, because I can see quarterly is nice because here I am. I think this technically is my quarterly meeting. So that part I get. But then each town should feel free to have intermediate meetings. Is that kind of where a system would work?
Yeah.
Camden, we don't bring everything to a Pathways. There are things that don't get, Dave does his work and meets with people about Camden sidewalks and stuff sometimes, and that doesn't always come to there's work that Rockport doesn't need to bring to the two-town committee, and that makes sense.
I
was just gonna say, I found tonight's meeting incredibly informative and encouraging. So yeah. I loved it.
I love the opportunity sometimes, once in a while, I get to hear Orion say something about what's going on in Rockport. And I think we have to figure out how to make it not more efficient for town staff if we want, because we can be more efficient if we can get town staff to be a part of it, but asking them to do it is, I can see why Rockport would want to have some meetings without having to be like doing all of this, definitely.
Well, okay, so it comes back to, do we want to try meeting quarterly? Obviously staying together as a committee, but reducing to quarterly, and then these side meetings, we can talk about them via email?
Couldn't each town continue to meet monthly and then quarterly we all get together and share everything that's happening and have kind of a liaison between the two towns to fill us in as to what the other town has been working on during that quarter, and then we try to work together on bigger projects on that quarterly meeting. I think the towns need to continue to meet every month to keep the ball rolling. That makes sense.
We could have workshops. It could be informal, workshops that the towns do and each town might have a different way of doing that, but we could have a more informal kind of thing where maybe even non-committee members could come and just, talk about. There's a lot of appetite, I think, sometimes for just community members to not be on a committee too and be able to talk about these issues. And
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
we wouldn't have to have a formal agenda. We could keep the town monthly, we could keep this monthly Zoom meeting. And
now, as far as the quarterly meeting goes, and that technicality of Rockport having to meet in person, would it feasibly work if the Rockport members, if we plan to meet on that quarterly meeting in Rockport in person, and any of the Camden people wanted to join?
Well,
Or-
it used to be, Michael, that we met at the town offices, and we were supposed to meet this month at the Camden town office. We have not been meeting at the Rockport town office or the Opera House, given the flooding at the Opera House. So by default, we were meeting in person over at the Camden town office. Now that that's fixed, we can go back to our schedule of one time in Camden, one time in Rockport.
Oh, okay, okay.
Which is great, because then, and then we really are crossing the town lines, doing the convening in both towns. But the quarterly meetings we could also do something like, well, just like Dakota came today, I'm like, maybe somebody from the Bicycle Coalition comes to talk about the e-bikes, or a public works director talks about, best practices, or what a complete street. I mean, it could be an educational thing, and then we promote it and put it out there. So
I really like that idea. Having people come in from the outside is a good thing for us, I think.
yeah.
You could have like people, like we talked about the traffic calming thing. Maybe the people that are asking for traffic calming in a neighborhood could come to a meeting, and talk about what they're experiencing or something like that. And you could hear it from them. I mean, that's not a bad thing. Gives them an outlet to kind of talk to a group as opposed to the town about it. I mean, not saying it would change anything, but sometimes hearing it from different people and what they're experiencing for problems can help you guys when you're thinking about like maybe solutions, proposing solutions or advocating for certain neighborhoods that need certain things. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Okay, so what's our game plan, you guys?
I think you want to vote.
Yeah, vote.
Do I get a vote as liaison?
I don't think
No,
they
you
don't
don't-
usually
you
let us
don't
vote,
vote,
even though I
Michael.
try to sometimes, but
No, you can't. I'm sorry.
Oh, I got to go back to taking
I'm not
minutes.
going to be offended. I'm not offended.
Yeah, no.
And
You have a
can we just
voice, but not a
repeat what we're
vote.
voting on?
So I'll make a motion that our committee moves to, our two-town committee moves to meeting by town for 2 meetings, and then quarterly meeting together in person at alternating town offices.
oh my, is that?
Yeah, that's possible.
I thought we were just going to vote on quarterly meetings.
Well, but it has to be part of it, so it fulfills the Rockport thing.
So we are supposed to live stream our meetings for Camden. That is something. So
Yeah, well, there you go.
Well,
So
yeah.
now I have to travel around with my live streaming equipment. I mean, it's fine. But
No, Orion said he could get Rockport set up.
Yeah,
Oh, so when it's in Rockport, you can. Okay.
we could do. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's got the owl thing, I guess.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Good
that's a big
question.
improvement.
If we continue to meet every month as a town, each separate town, would we have enough people to form the quorum to make it an official meeting? Is that an issue?
Well, how about it becomes a workshop? And then we vote at our quarterly meetings, unless something comes up.
Okay.
Andrew, you're really. I didn't copy what Andrew said. Did anybody else?
He's wondering if they're going to be official meetings, if we're doing this town thing, if we have enough for a quorum for the individual towns. I can just say for Camden, none of this matters as long as we're just needing to do things in public and stuff. So having a quorum and all of that and voting, and it's really not going to be so we can kind of adapt to what Rockport needs, I think.
I think the other thing just to add is being able to just know what each other's going to be talking about on the meetings. And it may be that, oh, it's a Camden meeting, but I'm interested in this topic. I'm going to go anyway. But just that idea that there isn't the expectation. Like,
Mhm. I like that.
So if you call those a workshop, that technically takes care of the
Yeah,
official complications.
Right,
I
as
would
long
think
as you don't vote.
yeah,
Which-
I think that that's
Well, that
good.
sounds,
So the motion is meeting by town, each town meets for two, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, each town
I'll
meets.
have to change it. I'll have to change it because I think what Michael said was appropriate. The
Okay,
committee's
go
not meeting, the committee is meeting quarterly. The motion is to meet quarterly, alternating towns, and otherwise we'll meet in work groups by town, wherever we want.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
no, you can't do that wherever you want because you are a municipal committee, so you can't.
No, we're not. We would only be half of a committee.
Yeah, but for
And we're not
Public
moving,
access.
we're not making motions for
So-
anything.
So
but you
we're only
still have to-
meeting as a committee four times a year. The
Yeah,
other
Okay.
meetings are not,
Okay.
not committee meetings.
that's
All
right.
right.
They're just work groups. That's what I heard the
Okay.
group wanting to talk about.
then let's call it work groups, not workshops. Okay.
I did. I said work groups by town. I
Yep.
didn't say workshops.
Does it have to be by town? Can we just say work groups? I just hate this. by town.
Ah, yeah.
I mean, people, if
Sure.
they want, just,
So
yeah.
committee meets quarterly in alternate towns, and to report on the work of groups, to the report on interim work.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Okay. That's Jeff's motion, right?
it was all Jeff's idea.
It's not.
Okay. Well, let's see how it goes. You know, we can do what we want to do. It's not,
Is there a second?
Second,
who seconded, Andrew?
yes.
All Camden.
Can I just ask? Jeff, you said we won't be voting on anything?
Not in individual work groups.
So then when we do get together,
We'll have to
there's
vote.
going to be a lot that's going to have to get done in those meetings. It's not, I
That's
don't
right.
think you're going to have time for public speakers to come in and so forth, just like tonight, we spent,
Could,
if you have a
could we
lot to
put
discuss.
together,
Well,
could we
if we
put
can,
together an impromptu meeting, at both towns if we had to do a specific vote in a hurry?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If the occasion warrants that we need to convene a meeting, we can convene a meeting. How about that?
Yep.
I think that's still up to us. If we need to, we can meet more often. We can just call an emergency meeting, right? Like the select board does. Like
And
if 4
just send
million,
that to the Penn Bay pilot and make sure they post it and we'll be good.
and if we have a $4 million grant that suddenly comes and we need to write an endorsement, we hop to it.
Right. I mean, the thing is that most of the time it's the quality of the input from a group of people to the select board or whatever that matters more than knowing that there was a vote about it. But
Yeah. No, I hear you. Okay, let's call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, is that unanimous? Are there any opposed? Okay.
I oppose.
You opposed?
I oppose.
Your
Are you
motion.
voting no? You made the motion and now you're voting no?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring the question. I just wanted to bring the question.
Okay.
I didn't
this
want to
is
do
gonna
it.
look very
Okay.
bad in the paper. All this controversy.
Trying to be funny?
No, I was
that's-
trying to move the process along. That's all. I didn't want it.
4, 5. So that's 6-1. No, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anita, how did you vote? In favor? Favor? Okay, 6-1. Okay. Whew, that makes a lot of writing in the minutes. Okay.
Congratulations, Linda. You've done it.
Yep.
Thank you, Linda.
Now
Okay.
we're gonna have to be super productive, everybody.
Well,
Um,
now we have to do some work, you guys. Instead of coming to these meetings and talking, like we got to do some work and then report back that we've
Right.
done the work.
So when's the next meeting officially?
Oh, good question. And where?
And how does the agenda get set with two different towns? Do somebody coordinate?
Well, Margot had an idea of there being co-chairs. So that's something else to discuss. And I'm going to say right now, I really want to take a break from being a chair. I would, and from taking minutes. So if there's somebody who wants to step forward, sure would appreciate that.
I'm happy to do it.
That was you, Jeff?
Yes.
After June, I'll have more capacity. I'm just wiped. Like,
Oh, okay. So, who will take minutes at these upcoming meetings?
I'll make sure somebody does.
Also, just so you know, your standard of minute taking is very, very, very high. Not
Whose standard? My standard?
this committee, and it might be,
Oh.
I don't know if it's your standard, if it's Anita's standard, if it's, but that might be, if that's for your own purposes, that's, you know, that's great, but it doesn't have to be the level that it is.
Did you see the minutes, this last minutes?
Hey,
I'm not-
easy.
I'm not
Easy.
ready to vote on them, so
That's called get those minutes done, but they do differ. Far differ
it's
from
you, I think you and Anita have really, really high standards. Technically, you know, you only need to have the minutes on what is voted on. And since we're live streaming this, you know,
There you go.
it's very, very transparent.
It's a good point. Taken.
Question. The email from Orion earlier today says January 29th is a Pathways Committee meeting,
no.
4:30. So will that,
For Orion.
well, I mean, it just says Pathways
that's what-
Committee meeting, the 29th at the Rockport Town Office.
Oh,
That's-
we should do it.
that's us.
That's a meeting of the Rockport
Work group.
Contingency.
work group,
Okay, thank you.
I think, but Orion, I think, is on vacation right now.
No,
So-
he sent an update today. An email today.
Yeah, it was 9 o'clock this morning.
Okay,
Okay. I
So-
respond, yes, but
all right, I'll look for that. So,
whatever. Problem.
okay, so I agree, just to go back to the quality of the minutes, I totally agree with Jeff that they need to be a little bit more substantial. And this meeting, you'll have some really good minutes, because what I'm gonna do is I copied and pasted a bunch of his slides and we'll intersperse them, because I think this was so valuable. On a meeting that we had before, I don't know, you know?
I gotta look at this, what's considered so substandard, because I have a hard time believing it, but.
All right.
Okay,
And then we've got the AI from Zoom.
Right.
and we've got AI.
Fill in.
So thank God we've got the AI.
I'm gonna send that to you guys, to everybody in just a minute. It'll be done like that, like within a few minutes after we're done.
I
Okay,
loved
so
it.
it's 8 o'clock and Jeff wants and Allison want to talk about meeting with the select board, the Camden Select Board. So what do you want, what's best practices there that you want to do?
I mean, I just want you guys to, somebody's got to think about what's going to be said, because we requested a meeting date.
I'm thinking about it.
Then, I know, but then, and we were going to have this video and stuff. And then right before they were about to set the agenda, Jeff, you sent this request that it not be on the agenda. And I almost died of embarrassment because we've been asking for that and they rearranged it to be that time.
I'm
So
sorry, Allison. It's
It's
just the
fine,
way it
it's
worked
fine.
out because it just kept pushed off and eventually it was going to hit a time where I couldn't make it. So, and I had
I thought the
volunteered
point
and
was to be able to talk about, just to know what the committee wants to present, because we want to make sure we get what should go in the packet. So I'm assuming I'm going to ask Tom to put and Audra to put the master plan in the packet.
yeah, what was sent back to me was include the master plan and a summary that I'm going to do of the master plan during the 20 minutes allotted for the presentation, 15 to 20 minutes.
Are we going to, wasn't the plan to try to show that video?
I don't think the video's done.
The video will be done. The video is going to be done. When is the meeting?
Tomorrow.
No.
Tomorrow? You're on the
No.
agenda for tomorrow?
No,
No.
it's February 6th, I believe.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to work on that. Allison, that video, boom, it's gonna be done this weekend.
February 6th, it
Okay,
is.
all right. So you'll have a video. You're gonna have a video.
So I
Is
guess
that
my
the Elm
question,
Street video you're talking about?
yeah, I guess my question, Anita did an excellent, she caught a really cool video today too of somebody walking on Elm
Great.
Street,
Well, we can put that in.
avoiding the stairs and walking in the street.
Well, let me get Andrew and Allison's section done, and I'll send it to you guys. And then if Anita wants to put hers on, or you have two, doesn't matter, as long as I get both.
That would be cool. My understanding from both the select board and the committee was to consolidate and make clear the master plan and what our top priorities are for focus on pathways in Camden.
I think you should go through a little bit of what you've done in the past.
Oh
and
yeah,
what-
yeah, historic.
um,
Oh yeah, I'll do historic, just to
Like
establish
the,
the basis.
like the Riverwalk, the select board doesn't know the history of the Riverwalk at all.
Yeah.
Or maybe even where sections of it are. So, just some things like that.
Yeah,
But will you send the summary around before? if this
Yeah.
goes to Audra?
yeah.
Rather-
No, they want Tom or Audrey or someone said, please have the summary ready by Thursday before that meeting to include in the packet. And
Okay,
so
but
I'll
you
send that
send it to
around
the
before
group
that.
first? Okay. perfect.
I'll send it to the group first for review. Expected around February 1, 2.
You know what, you might send could put pictures of from the video could go with the master plan, so they could put that in the packet. We can talk about this over.
You mean
we're
freeze
just-
frames from the video?
Yeah, just to have them look at that ahead of time or.
Mm.
I really love the way Anita talks about the sidewalk and going, she said it so well in the select board meeting the other day about going from, because instead of calling it the stop and go intersection, she said, if you're trying to go from this place to this place, there's no Rennie's to.
It was Rennie's. I said
Street
Rennie's
School
because
or-
everybody was.
It was just perfectly articulated, because you could think, oh, how would I do that if I went from there? If maybe Anita could try to remember how she said that exactly. And
Okay. Well,
Okay.
we can check was that in the select board meeting?
I think maybe I wrote even a text message about it. I don't want to take everybody's time with this, but as long as everybody's thinking about it and if more people than just Jeff go to the select board meeting, that's good too.
Yeah, put in your calendar, January 6th.
Remind
February 6th.
February 6th. Sorry, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, so just think about all the things you guys have done a lot over the years.
Study that goes with that, by the way, that MDOT did too. I don't know if that's worth looking at again.
Didn't catch that, Dave. You said your buddy did what?
There was a study.
Oh.
Done by MDOT, and we had it on the website for a while, and it talked about all the different options for the
For the
intersection.
stop and go? The stop and go?
Oh,
Oh
you don't
yeah,
wanna do
I've
it?
got that.
They're
I don't
just
want to
gonna
do that.
overview.
I'm not gonna review that.
No, I'm just saying it might be something to look at.
Their presentation is supposed to be more like general about the Pathways Committee stuff and what
Oh.
they've been doing. It's not supposed to be there's going to be
Specific.
an emphasis on the urgency of the Elm Street intersection, but not, but more just, this is the goals of the committee. These are the things we've been working on, and this is what we think matters.
And
Yeah.
a recap just of our meeting with Dakota, with his.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is really outstanding what we've learned. And I was just looking at the list of which cities and which states have adopted the complete streets. As usual, Maine is way behind. There's a handful, but Camden and Rockport are right at the time to be progressive about all of this stuff. So
I want to underscore that they have given us 20 minutes. It is not very long. If I had to summarize Dakota's presentation, I'd have trouble doing that in 15 minutes. He just spent an hour and a half with us. So just trying to put it in context. But Allison, I really would appreciate if I missed something that you ask a question in the follow-up session. And you're really good at that, guiding me to be able to answer something that I forgot. Like, have you had any good conversations about the active transportation plan? You know, actually, yeah.
I gotta excuse myself.
I think,
got a Zoom
I gotta
meeting
go.
on in a few
Okay.
minutes. So,
All right.
okay.
Thanks for
I
coming.
think
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Jeff is
Michael.
hesitant.
Bye-bye.
Happy to see you all. Thanks. How do I get out? Now I have to find out how to stop this.
I
There we
think
go.
Jeff was hesitant, well, I would be hesitant to highlight the DOT presentation because it was so focused on cars and how fast cars go and whether they can go faster through the intersection this way or that way. And it just really, I don't even know if he talked about pedestrians.
Yeah, it just
Our-
didn't start from the right point of what the
It
goal,
really
yeah.
didn't. It was all
Yeah,
about
I have
cars.
to agree with that. That it wasn't really, I think that's why a lot of it kind of failed, to be honest with you.
Honestly, if you had just started out that whole conversation about like, so this is why this is coming back up again, because we're getting a lot of requests for this sidewalk to be fixed, and this is what I've noticed, and so I was, talking about the possibilities for funding it, and just.
I think a short clip of
Bob
just
didn't
like
give you that opportunity to summarize it. It would have been much better that way.
a short clip of just somebody trying to walk through that intersection would be good, because you get there and you're like, all right, what do I do? Where do I go? It's not an easy intersection to get through.
Right, but even just your being able to see how, like the couple times you've explained it to me, like, oh, well, you really have two problems here. You have this house over here and you have this tree, and these are the things guiding, why this is a difficult project, and these are the options. And I think you're a lot of the time the best person to explain that.
Need a
Mm.
benevolent dictator, like what I think someone said once before. I need to be able to just
Right.
The right benevolent dictator.
The right.
Whichever of you would do that.
All right, I have to go, you guys. I have to go call in some dogs, so.
Yeah, so I'll finish it. I'll just say, if anybody has any specific items they want me to include in that Camden presentation, please reach out.
The Jacobs Quarry Trail, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Really, Tom and I want you to really highlight that. It's in our master plan, we voted.
And it's in Rockport's master plan too. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, guys.
Bye.